Okay.
But still.
Here we go. Today being Thursday, February the 24th, 2022, this is the official meeting of the Livingston Parish Ordinance Committee. Ms. Sandy, would you call the roll to see if there's a quorum?
Mr. Wascom.
Here.
Mr. Garlinghouse.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Mack.
He is not going to make it. I talked to Shane. He was stuck in traffic on the other side of Mississippi when I talked to him, and, you know,
Oh, yeah, they had that wreck on the top of the bridge. Yeah,
something,
that's right.
I guess so. He's
I saw
stuck.
it earlier.
The first item would be the
Old business.
pickup would be the old business. Last time we spoke as the ordinance committee, Mr. Gerald Burns, we presented a putting together an ordinance for setbacks for state highway. I think we all came to a good conclusion without any really much opposition. But we were sent from there to send it to Miss Sandy to draft it up and to have it sent to our parish attorney to have it overlooked as well. And then it just, because of busyness and I guess being a little bit shorthanded, we just wasn't quite able to get that ordinance put together. So I'd like to defer that until the next ordinance committee meeting. The other thing was, I think Mr. Billy Taylor asked that we have something on the ordinance committee. Did you want us?
I would like to wait on that. I don't think
Okay, all right. Okay, and we're going to hold off on that. So then there was some new business. I got here today and I found a notice of introduction of ordinance, and I did a little bit of asking. I think Mr. Gary Talbert has drafted an ordinance, and he may want to come speak about this.
You got extra ones up here. There.
Extrans.
Yeah.
I laugh at the Scooter. You turn extra ones into extrans. One word.
That's northwest Livingston Parish speak.
Is this one not gonna work?
You gotta wiggle it.
Is there a battery in it?
Battery? Oh, it doesn't have a battery, yes, it's not
I had to play with it a long time, but I could make it work.
Take about 15 seconds to boot up, so.
Okay, so I want to read through this thing if y'all don't mind. I know there are going to be a lot of questions. I will try to make some explanations as we go, and then it might be easier that way.
I know.
There are a couple engineers out here right now that are going to want to speak on it. So,
We're waiting for your mic to come on, Gary.
we still have to come on.
It won't be, it'll be on just a second.
There it is.
Okay, y'all can hear me now?
Yep.
I'm just gonna read through it, if y'all don't mind. It's just, this is basically section 125, and we're just gonna highlight some of its book housekeeping that we found out in dealing with, talking to Morgan over different things. Some of it's actually changes. First thing we're gonna do is add a definition of FONSI. FONSI is a document that presents the reasons why the agency has concluded that there are no significant environmental impacts projected to occur upon implementation of the action. And then we're going to talk about different deals, like final plats accompanied by FONSI. And basically what that is it basically says that every time you make this submittal, that you're not impacting your neighbor. It's basically what it amounts to. That there's no significant impact to the environment to make this change. And there'll be a lot of people that say, we kind of do that already in some of the studies. What I'm going to tell you is that there is a place in Watson that an engineering firm did a 100-year design, 100-year stormwater retention on a particular deal. And if you go back and look at our ordinance now, if you use a 25-year design, you've got to look downstream and upstream at 100 years. If If you use a 100-year design, then your outfall at 100-year, you don't have to look anywhere else because you already are meeting the 100-year standard up and down. There's a 36-inch pipe going into a ditch, and the first culvert you get to is 8 inches. There's no way that you'd have got a finding of no significant impact on that design if that was required. But because of the way our ordinance is written, you put a drainage impact study together, you put a retention plan together, and everybody was happy. But nobody looked at what it did to the neighbor's yard right next door. And there's nowhere in our ordinance that requires that under certain circumstances. So that's the reason to have somebody come in and say, have an engineer put his license on the line and say, when you build this project, there is no significant impact. That's the purpose of the FONSI. In a lot of federal projects, you'll see FONSI's in the early design stage. And basically what it is, they look at traffic and impact to the environment and drainage and all kind of things, on federally funded projects. So this isn't near this intense. This is basically to say that if we build this subdivision as designed, or this gas station, or this laundromat, or this car wash, or whatever, this apartment complex, that based on the design and the drainage impact study, if we construct it as designed, there will be no significant impact to the neighbors. And so that's a big step on something that we're not currently doing. We're not tying it all together. So basically where you see a lot through here, there's some renumbering. It says that the FONSI will accompany the final plat. On section 125.12, we go from 2 year to 24 months. It's just, if we kind of refer to months in most of the places in here, that thing just happened to be 2 years. That's a housekeeping deal. The first significant change after the FONSI's in section 125-13, procedures for subdivision with improvements. If you go to stage 2, at the very bottom of section 1, any alteration to the preliminary plat shall be subject to review by the Planning Commission. In the past, we gave you a 5% variance on lots, and if you didn't move an intersection or sewer treatment plant or something, then we left it alone. If you make a submittal, be sure your submittal's right. Because what we're seeing is guys making submittals for 800 and 900 lots. Then they come back and they change them and they change them and they change them. So, or we have developers that are notorious about, we got 150 lots, but we got this green space. Next thing you know, they've put 5 or 6 more lots in the green space. If you change the initial plot plan, you're coming back and starting over. You're coming back to the Planning Commission. Preliminary plat's good for 24 months unless alterations occur, then you got to come back to planning. Any alterations made by the ODS after approval of preliminary plat shall be submitted to the planning director and reviewed by the Planning Commission. It's just reiterating in other sections what we're doing. And then it strikes out on section, on 125.13B6, it on the changes, alterations, it eliminates all those options, all those different variances that we allow. Basically, get it right the first time. And then stage 6, final plat and bonding, accompanied by FONSI. It just reiterates that again. 125.14, building permits for individual lots shall be issued upon a certified copy of the final plat, accompanied by the FONSI. We just, every time you had to generate a final plat, you've got to just show that the FONSI's there, that shows that there's no significant impact. If you go down to 125.23, that's just a housekeeping measure that this council's actually already addressed. It just hadn't been, it just wasn't noted in the, it wasn't noted on the Municode, so we're just making a correction to it. That's the 65-foot, 6-foot, and 7-foot. Remember, we had them depending on the size. You could, there was no variance, meaning if the lot was one particular size, it could be said 6 or 7. So there's just it's just a housekeeping measure on that.
What'd you say that is? 125?
125-25. No, 125-23, 3 side yard. The front setback, rear setback, side yard.
You didn't add anything, you just struck.
We'll actually, yeah, I think it's just a correction. We added something a while back, we didn't strike it out, so it's just a housekeeping measure. I mean, there's a couple housekeeping things in here. There's some
In other words, it said it twice.
there's some renumerations later on, and I'll show you those as we get to them. The next significant change is in 125-25 on section section G1. We've asked in the past to look for calculating, determining existing condition peak for 10, 25, and 100 year. And we struck 10 and 25, and I'm thinking that we're only supposed to strike 10, but we'll come back and revisit that later when we ask an engineer questions, when we talk about another thing and figure out if 25 is needed there. And then H is subject to age shall cards for 1 year to the following three options. Open ditch. If I'm not mistaken, that was not in when we pulled Morgan's copy of what she was working off of. This was not in there. I believe this needs to be stricken based on the Muni code. When we had it redone, it just got put in there on accident. But look, that's what noted in here. We'll address it later, but it was stricken now as a housekeeping. And Morgan's not here tonight, but she will be here in a couple weeks or whenever we're able to do this again, and she can verify what we understand.
So H1 is what you're talking about?
H1's being stricken, and it's being, and then we're renumbering 2 and 3 to 4 and 5 and 6. And that's just Morgan's copy of what she said the law was versus what Municode had varied by that. So we're just doing the housekeeping on that to make it match what currently is being used at planning. The next significant deal is J, detention basin 1. Design basin shall be designed to detain flow so as to decrease downstream runoff by 50% for a 100-year pre-development storm. We used to our current ordinance says for no increase, meaning that it's net zero, just net even, and it was a 25-year storm event. This calls for a 50% reduction in stormwater runoff on a 100-year event. And I had an engineer tell me a while ago that I'm not sure that can be designed. Currently in Eberville, the ordinance requires a 500-year retention of water, and then you release at 10-year pre-storm, which is significantly more than a 50% reduction. St. Tammany currently requires a 75% reduction. Shreveport right now is you retain at a 100-year storm and release at 10-year pre, which is more than a 50% reduction. So it obviously can be done because it's current law in certain areas of the state already. Item 4 is K, expiration. Drainage impact studies are applicable for 24 months from the date performed. Resubmitted drainage impact studies shall follow all updated design requirements. I mean, here's the deal. The world is changing. Our parish is changing daily. We let people make drainage impact studies for developments that are 10 years in the construction stage. Drainage impact studies ought to have a shelf life of 24 months. And if the construction plans aren't approved in 24 months, then the drainage impact study needs to be updated and the construction plan needs to be redesigned. But basically, that's when the drainage impact study is evaluated. When we sign the construction plans and say, this is good, you can move forward, then it needs to be within the 24 months of drainage impact study. If it's not within that 24-month period, then the drainage impact study needs to be updated to the current standard, and the construction plans need to be updated to the current standard. And then of course, there's just some housekeeping on eliminating the need for a 25-year storm evaluation on detention. And then we're gonna get to mobile homes and commercial. It basically just carries it over. 25-52 mobile, any alterations made by the ODS after approval of preliminary shall require it to go submitted to the planning director and reviewed by the planning commission. It says that the drainage impact study on a mobile home park expires after 24 months. Again, on commercial developments, we talk about preliminary plat being submitted to the planning director if any alterations are made. On 125-06, on C, there was an item in our deal that allowed for multifamily developments.
125-06?
125-106.
106, okay.
Item C, require that multifamilies additions and modifications of which qualify for an exemption for the requirement for preparing a drainage impact study under section 125.4 may also have the required traffic impact study, stool impact study waived administratively upon recommendation of the parish review engineer. I can't think of any reason that any
should happen.
multifamily development would require the waiver of a drainage impact study, traffic study, or school study. Because it is probably one of the more denser applications, you know, be a more densely populated situation than any other development we had. And why would you not want to ask the school how a densely populated area would impact their classrooms? So multifamilies ought to be waived, should not be waived with respect to drainage impact studies, traffic, or schools. And then, of course, under the multifamily development submittals, it just says any alterations made by the ODS should be submitted. So that's basically what the ordinance says. It's an effort to do a couple things. You know, if I go build a subdivision and the water's not good there, or there's not enough water pressure, as a developer, I gotta run a line or pay the water company to put a main in that's got the size to handle the volume. If we build a subdivision on a road and there's too much traffic, I'm required to put a turn lane in or a deceleration lane or something. If there's not sewer there and there's sewer close by, I'm required to, you know, put a lift station in and run a force main and tie it in. But we don't ever make them improve the drainage. We don't require an impact fee. We don't require them to do anything. We're saying as long as you don't flood your neighbor, you know what I'm saying, then we're good. As long as we don't make it worse than when you started, we're good. We improve everything else, but we don't improve the drainage. And the ironic thing is the drainage is the one thing in this parish that half of it isn't funded. I mean, there's no funding. There's no funding source at the parish level for drainage. I mean, we know that the only non-discretionary funds we have are pretty small.
That's correct.
And so basically for us to even pay the match on a drainage project is a reach. So consequently, you know, we're looking for drainage projects that are grants that have no match, or we're looking for some way to pay the match through ARPA or something else. And guess what? When these disasters are over, then we don't have any money to pay for it. So why would we continue to allow developers to come in and make money off our parish by developing land and not improving the infrastructure? We require it on everything else. Why don't we require it on drainage? The other thing will happen. I mean, you and I have all heard it. You know, there's actually the word moratorium been batted around because it's been batted around in other parishes. It's actually in place in a lot of parishes. You know, we're a bedroom community. Livingston Parish is a bedroom community. If we don't have people coming in here, you know, spending tax dollars, you know, spending their dollars and generating tax revenue, that's our biggest industry. Think about it. Our people are what funds government. If we limit the growth or stop the growth or kill development within our parish, you know, we're going to kill revenue growth. I mean, any way you figure it. So, you know, to put a moratorium in place and say we're not going to develop anything, let's just make development improve what's there. Why can we not have a guy buy 100 acres and come in and put 300 lots on it or 250 lots and improve the drainage in the area? What's wrong with that? They're going to tell you it costs too much money. They complain about as-built, the cost. Let me tell you something. If another $1,000 a lot or $1,500 a lot breaks that development, it probably shouldn't have been built in the first place. Where else are they building new lots? Where else is development happening? Where is land available where government is even wanting you to come in and build? All we're asking you to do is quit raping and pillaging our land, and let's quit being bad neighbors, and let's improve the drainage in our area. That's all I got to say. Any questions?
Yeah, I do. So essentially, by doing these things, we can keep from shutting down all development in the parish. Whereas if we don't do something, and we've been working on things for a year,
Yep.
and they keep getting shot down and different things. So if we don't do this, it's gonna have to come to a moratorium until we get zoning in place and some other things in place,
Well,
you know?
And everybody knows that I was the one who had moratorium on my mouth the most.
Yeah.
But Mr. Talbot, me and Mr. Talbot talked about this, and I'm in agreement with all this. Now, clearly, well, I won't say clearly, there are some things that will probably be tweaked on it, but I agree with him. This is not asking a lot, as opposed to a moratorium, because he's right, and we have to stop the pillaging of our land and our way of life. Now, I do believe that obviously a moratorium it'll grind to halt the problem, but it'll also kind of create another one. But if it gets to that point, we have to do something, until we get zoning in place. And so, this is good. There's more things, and we're gonna move forward. But this is good, and I'm welcome to some input on what Mr. Talbot has presented here, because, to be truthful, he's the one taught me off the fence on the moratorium,
Off the
because
ledge.
he taught me. I was there.
You were there.
But if we can enact some certain things like this, and it's not like we say we don't want development. We just want better development, smarter development, and we want it to be done in a way where it truly doesn't impact your neighbor. They talk about a net zero effect when it pertains to drainage, but we all know if everything they said was net zero, we wouldn't be where we're at right now.
That's right.
I mean, that's just a fact.
Let me,
Somewhere on that chain, something's not right. So we have to force it to be right.
Right. I have a couple questions.
Okay.
You did a great job of explaining and I think of going through and describing the intent of the ordinance. This is the first I've seen it tonight.
I understand, yeah.
I didn't know anything about it. You had mentioned that you kept referring to we had put this together. Can you tell me who we is? I mean, if you don't mind. It's the first I've heard this.
Our clerk on leave did the legwork. Our clerk that's on leave did the legwork for me. I'm not very good at some of this stuff. I gave her what I wanted to do, and she sat there, and I sat behind her, and she would work on it.
When you said we, I just didn't know what.
That's the we. I didn't want y'all to think I did all the everything by myself, because it's beyond me.
No,
I
I was just thinking that maybe you worked with some other parish engineers to do this. That's why.
I talked to Morgan. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've talked to Morgan about it, and we've had several phone conversations, and she's, giving me a little guidance. But basically,
no, I think you did a good job. One more question. I mean, it's going to be. I'm going to take the time. I'm going to read it, but one thing that you did is describe it really good, and I hope everybody watching this on YouTube, all the engineers that would know what's in this ordinance, would give us a lot of input, because I know it's going to affect a lot. Hold on, and I'll tell you why. Because even you made the comment that you had an engineer tell you that you can't design 100-year. So I got to know why people say that you can't be done, and if it can be done, how is it going to be done? So, I mean, there's still some questions I want to know, but I think it's a great step toward requiring people to, if you're going to develop, like you say, you're going to not only not flood your neighbor, you're going to make the drainage better around you for everyone.
And look, I mean, I think the comment from the engineers, I'm not sure you can design with a 50% reduction on a 100-year peak. That's just what he said. And I'm just like, he might be right. So I made some inquiries. And those were just 3 specific examples that are much steeper. And if they don't like the 50% reduction in the 100-year, we can do the 500-year and the 10, or the 75%, or the 100-year and the 10. We can do any form of, we can use Shreveport's current standard. We can use, St. Tammany's current standard. We can use Iberville's current standard. Either one of them. I went to something that, and talking to a couple engineers at some gravity drainage districts that like the idea of just going to 100-year peak and reducing it by 50%.
So
I mean, it was just pretty simple math. It wasn't like we got to figure out what the 10-year pre is and the 100-year post is and look for the difference. They liked the fact that you came up with a number and reduced it by 50%. So that was kind of the reasoning for that. But look, there are other standards out there that are tougher than ours, and if they want to implement that, then we're more than welcome to talk to them about it. And we know that they're being designed in other areas, so they're more than capable of happening.
Thank you, Mr. Tower. And I just want to let you know that, and anyone else that's watching the video, and I'd like to get input from, because I mean, it's a lot of stuff here to digest. And I'm not telling you, I understand everything Mr. Towers is saying,
We're not
but
engineers. Yeah.
I need, if you have information regarding this from a developer standpoint, or if you have information from an engineer, Thomas Johnson, Mr. Derek Murphy with Quality, and Billy Taylor, if you have any information, please get with us and let us know
Everybody but Billy, not
how these
Billy.
things will fit, how they can be implemented in this parish to improve drainage, so.
And keep building. You know, that's the problem, is that we don't want development to stop. But at the same time, we have to protect the people that have been here.
Mr. Girlinghouse.
I was just going to say, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
this is assembled, this was the first time I saw it. Now, everything
Oh, yeah.
in here, me and Mr. Talbot talked about in principle.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is the
Okay,
first time I've seen
okay,
it.
all right.
It wasn't like we've been staring
I
at
thought-
this. We haven't been staring at this for like 2
No.
weeks
Okay.
behind your
I
back.
got here
mean,
and went, well, it's ready?
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like,
I was too, so.
the next item on the agenda is a recommendation of the adoption of school media policy procedures. This is Mr., I think,
Social.
Yeah, I brought it.
social media. Mr. Girlinghouse brought, were you able to move forward with us, or do you want us to
No,
postpone this?
I think, you know,
Very last item.
yeah, I think that it's
Oh, okay, okay.
It's a standard, you know, we kind of modeled it off a couple other governmental entities. And look, those are the things that are going to be fluid. We're going to have to change them over time, just like any ordinance. But, I mean, I think it's
So it's on-
inclusive, it's pretty comprehensive, it's good, and
So it's on the back
Make
page
sure all
here,
employees read it.
22BII?
and so, you want to take a time to read it real quick, or?
Do you want to? I mean, that's first, I knew
mean,
we were
I mean,
working on it, I just didn't know it,
I've read it.
okay.
But I mean,
It's just common sense stuff.
there's no bombs in there.
Look, we've got time, if you want to take a
No,
minute.
I mean, I can read it, yeah, let me get to it here. Look at it in the packet here. What item is it? What item is it, Sandy?
No.
22BII.
It's the very
You mean the
pages.
social
Gotcha.
thing? No, but
got
it
you.
said
You
introduction,
need to
you
read it?
confused.
No, I got it. 22BII.
That's it
All
right
right. All right, so, social media and social networking policy. Employees who fall directly under the supervision of the Livingston Parish Council shall adhere and abide by the following guidelines in regard to social media and/or social networking. Purpose: the personal use of social media and/or social networking can have bearing on departmental personnel of the Livingston Parish Council in their official capacity. As such, this policy provides information of a precautionary nature as well as prohibitions of the use of social media by employees who fall directly under the supervision of the Livingston Parish Council. These employees are defined under Section 2-10 of the Livingston Parish Home Rules Charter. This policy is not meant to address one particular form of social media or social networking, but rather social media in general, as advances in technology will occur and new tools will emerge. Definitions. Let me read the definitions. Joe, I can do it, I mean, if you want me to, but blog, a self-published diary of commentary on a particular topic that may allow visitors to post responses, reactions, and/or comments. Page, the specific portion of a social media website where content is displayed and managed by an individual or individuals with administrative rights. Post, content on an individual shares on social media site or the act of publishing content on a site. Social media, a category of internet-based resources that integrate user-generated content for user participation. Social network, a network of social interactions and personal relationships, a dedicated website or other applications which enables users to communicate with each other by posting information, comments, messages, images, etc. Speech, expression of or communication of thoughts or opinions in spoken words and written by expressive conduct, symbolism, photographs, videotape, or related forms of communication. Policy. This policy identifies potential use that may be explored or expanded upon or deemed reasonable by the Livingston Parish Council. On-the-job sanctioned use. Employees of the Livingston Parish Council will update the official website or the Livingston Parish Council and or YouTube accounts in their official capacities. All employees shall have a staff login and passwords for this use. Viewing social media or social networks during work hours is not prohibited. Employees of this Livingston Parish Council may engage in social networking websites with a specific purpose that focuses on professional networking for career development, being as such to connect, share, access knowledge, insights, and employment opportunities, etc. Such sites known as LinkedIn, etc. Employees may also be permitted to use social media and or social networking to take required mandated educational classes, or if it is conducive to conduct meetings where it is not possible to attend in person. Personal use precautions and prohibitions. Although employees of the Livingston Parish Council have a right to express and discuss public issues as a private citizen, employees shall not blog or post any information referring to Livingston Parish government. It is advised to use extreme caution while using speech off the clock, may pursuant to their official duties. Employees using such speech must know that it is not protected under the First Amendment and may form basis of discipline if deemed detrimental to the Livingston Parish government to the degree that the speech impairs working relationships for which loyalty and confidentiality is important, impede the performance of duties, or if it negatively affects the public's perception of the Livingston Parish Council or parish government. As public employees of the Livingston Parish Council, no one shall post, transmit, or otherwise disseminate any information to which they have access as a result of their employment. If an employee sees the information online that they believe the Livingston Parish Council members should be aware of, they may notify or inform that council member by phone, email, or text message, but shall not post anything in response to the content of that online social media outlet. Employees must always remember that anything posted through social media is public, even if it is posted in a so-called private group or restricted page. This means that everything on the internet is public and everything posted is digitally archived and permanently available. Employees must think this before they post. Anything posted in violation of this policy will result in disciplinary action, causing termination even if they believe the content was private. In addition, as public employees of the Livingston Parish Council, any personal posting or blogging on social media or social networks shall be prohibited during hours worked on the clock. Anyone that is an employee that is under direct supervision of the Livingston Parish Council as defined under Section 2-10 of the Livingston Parish Home Rule Charter that may be found in violation of this policy or procedure shall be subject to termination.
All right, would you like to have a resolution to send this to the parish to adopt as a resolution on the council?
I mean, it's an ordinance, isn't it? Is it a resolution? Okay, yeah, I make a motion to the council to be adopted.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion
I would
carries.
just like to say one thing. I'm glad that I don't fall under this because I answer these people back when they saying stuff that is untrue about anyone on this council, or the parish president, or the sheriff, or anybody else.
Wait a second, so the council aren't subject to this?
No,
So what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander? I'm just trying to figure it out.
no, because we're not parish employees apparently.
Thank you, Mr. King. With nothing else, I guess that would be a motion to adjourn for the ordinance committee.
Oh, you got the other business.
Oh, was there some other business here?
Well, I was just wanted to say that, well, on the next meeting, we're going to take up the pond ordinance
Okay.
and the giving the right-of-way built into the ordinance that allows us to have access for
So we can get around to
future
clean it,
retention ponds, so
keep
we
it
can get
up.
around and clean it. So that's it.
Okay, you gonna have something drafted up for that?
Yes,
Hopefully.
yes, hopefully.
And she'll have the setback for the state highway for the next ordinance committee meeting,
Yeah,
next meeting.
that's it. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Grillinghouse, seconded by Mr. King. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.